Hi, I'm Ian Brown, Managing Director of Excelpoint, and you're listening to On Point, a podcast brought to you by ourselves. For those of you who haven't heard of us, we're a global leader in the development of no-code software technology. We help businesses all around the world to update their processes, overcome challenges, automate workflows, and drive out business efficiencies. We do this by implementing innovative, automated, and highly flexible, adaptable no-code software, and we typically do this approximately 10 times faster than bespoke software. Today, we're joined by a driven and professional individual with a wealth of business knowledge, Nick Butler. Nick is the Business Director at Modeshift. Established in 2001, Modeshift is a not-for-profit membership organisation funded by the public, private and community sectors. Modeshift aims to secure increased levels of safe and active, sustainable travel in educational establishments, businesses and communities throughout the world, throughout the UK at least. Thereby, they encourage widespread behavioural change in travel for the long term, for the benefit of everybody. It seeks to do this by representing the members' needs and supporting sustainable travel practitioners through a range of new and existing services. Nick, thanks for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Established in 2001, you must have seen all sorts of change, not just in how people travel and you're trying to change their behaviour, but also the tools, techniques and mechanisms you have at your disposal to communicate the message and engage with people to make that behavioural change.
Yeah, absolutely. So this year's our 20th birthday of Modeshift. We were first set up in 2001 when school travel planning first became a thing in the UK. So it didn't really exist before then. So in 2001, local authorities started on this whole new venture of schools having travel plans to encourage more kids to walk and cycle to school. And then a couple of years later, the government set a target for every school in the country to have a travel plan by March 2010. So that was really when Modeshift came into its own to support local authority staff who were doing this new thing of school travel planning, to share ideas, share best practice and work out how to tackle the school run basically.
And I don't want to make assumptions, so I'll state an assumption but just cross-check that. I would think that it's partly because there's a mass number of people or the population travelling to schools, but also if you can educate early, so the children that are coming out of school, if you can affect their behaviour to think about the way they travel, schools are a great place to start because you're tackling a mass market at the first place and you're educating in an educational setting. Is that the gist behind?
Yeah, 100%. So we've got about 19,000 schools in England at the moment. So every morning, kids on the journey to school, however they travel, walk, cycle, car, however that might be, it's a huge movement of people every morning and every afternoon. But it's not just the kids, it's the parents and how they choose to travel and how they do the school run then impacts on how they travel onto work or the shops or for leisure activities. Grandparents that might be involved, school staff, school teachers, how they travel to school as well. And then all of the neighbours around the school as well. So it's a massive, massive target audience that we reckon impacts at least 40% of the sort of population in a morning. They reckon that 1 in 5 journeys in the morning rush hour is on the school run. So that's why when school holidays come, we see roads so much quieter because straight away there's 1 in 5 cars off the road. But then parents are on the holidays as well and not at school as well. But yeah, the second part of what you say is that active travellers at school then become active travellers at secondary school, at college, university, and then into the workplace as well. Yeah. So yeah, if we can set good, early, active and sustainable travel habits when kids are travelling to school, then hopefully we get that when they move on as well.
And I guess a decade ago when this all started, a travel plan was just that. You had a plan on a piece of paper or maybe reams of paper that would be cascaded through a school and disseminating that information and also collating the information that's coming back in the other direction would be a mammoth task.
Yeah, it was definitely in the early 2000s it was all paper-based. And in fact in some cases it still is. There's still some travel planning is paper-based and sort of really intensive on on older methods. Modeshift Stars in its early days, so the Stars scheme specifically started in 2008 for Modeshift. And for the first 4 years, we were a paper-based scheme as well. Schools had to, as well as creating their travel plan, they had to collect all sorts of evidence of the activities they've done. So pictures and posters and things like that all went into 2 big heavy lever arch files that then had to be posted off for quality assurance as well. So it wasn't until 2012 that we moved to our first online system to really start streamlining things and make the process easier for lots of people.
So I know from that point onwards, because that's when we met, or I met you at the back end of that, you went down the route of a bespoke development, web-based, so that your customers, of which you've got a variety of differing customers that we might talk about, could log into and interact with the Modeshift Stars process, collate information and so forth. Talk about that a little bit, both the different types of customers you have, your experience of going down the bespoke development route, and how that moved Modeshift on, because it definitely moved you guys on quite significantly.
Yeah, so there's basically 3 key elements of what Stars does. So first of all, it provides a tool for an organisation, and in terms of customers, that could be a school, it could be a workplace or a leisure park or a train station, or it could be more of a residential development, like a housing development. So those are the sort of 3 key areas: education, business or community are the 3 types of setting that might require a travel plan. Basically anywhere that someone travels to or a place that people travel from. So the first thing the Star system does is it allows that site type to create that travel plan. And within that plan, there's all sorts of information that goes in, like a site audit of what sort of transport infrastructure they have in place, and the different travel modes that the people accessing the site might use, whether it's a sustainable mode, walk, cycle, scoot, public transport, or the car modes as well. But then all the different types of car modes, like car sharing, park and ride, electric vehicles, things like that.
Yeah.
So it collates all of that information, puts all of that together, and using all of this bespoke information, a site then puts together an action plan, a whole sort of bespoke package of initiatives and actions that they're going to deliver to have an impact on how people travel.
And that's tailored to that actual site or educational establishment or business.
Yeah, we have about, for schools, there's about 150 different initiatives that they could pick from to put into their action plan, but it's completely bespoke to them. They choose which selection of activities to do, with the overall aim of reducing single occupancy car use and increasing those sustainable and active modes. So that's the first part, is that the system allows them to put that together. The second part is then the monitoring of those plans on a site-by-site level. So are those actions getting delivered? Are they having an impact? Is how people travel changing? But then on a local authority-wide basis, so the local authority can look at all of the infrastructure across its area for its schools or its workplaces and see how they want to impact and change that. But widely, again, is travel changing at the local authority's schools or at its workplaces? Are they achieving those reductions in single occupancy car use? And the third element of the scheme is the accreditation and the national recognition for successfully delivering that travel plan. So back in the early 2000s, the real focus was you need a plan, and that was it. There wasn't so much focus on you need to deliver this plan.
Yeah.
And that's why accreditation came about. That's why STARS came about in 2008. It was to recognise and reward those sites that actually did something with it and started to achieve a change in how people were travelling as well. So that's the third element of the scheme. It gives us that almost a benchmarking tool, if you like, or a scheme to work towards for the sites to achieve accreditation and then be rewarded as well. So yeah, in terms of who we use, I've said the schools. We've just had an export actually from Excelpoint. We've now got 4,600, just over 4,600 registered users, and we have them on. It's basically a tiered access to the system that we have. So we've got the Modeshift level at the top level, where we can access all of our local authorities and our sites to view what's happening. There's then the local authority, or the team have renamed it the organisation tier. So in there we've got local authorities, of which we've got 81 local authorities.
The organisation tier sounds a lot better.
Yeah, so there's 81 local education authorities in there out of a potential 120. So we've got 2/3.
Good coverage.
Yes, when we started, we started with nothing, but in 2012, before we went as the national scheme, we had 22 local authorities, and in the last year alone, we've added another 12 or so, I think. So we're now at 2/3 of all local authorities in England outside of London that use the scheme. And also in that organisational tier, we have transport consultancies that use the system for travel plans, and corporate organisations who have a sort of a national level access, like Next PLC, who have just had over 110 sites accredited in the last 6 months as well. So that's that middle tier, and then we have the bottom tier, which is the sites, and they're the schools, the businesses that are creating their individual travel plans. So between all of those organisations, 4,600 registrants now.
And I would imagine in the future, the immediate future to some degree, large corporates, so you mentioned Next, and I think we should give a shout out to Next for that. Large corporates that have a big footprint and a lot of people travelling, more and more of those will be looking at sustainable issues, the green agenda. The public generally are much more aware of that now. And what do you think the take-up will be, not so much in the education sector, but with commercial entities going forward? Are you seeing an increase in that area as well?
Yeah, we're certainly the last 12 months sort of in line with the STARS business system, because we've got the 3 education business community. With the STARS business system moving to Excelpoint, we're starting to see the sort of momentum of sites getting accreditation really increasing now.
Right.
And we've started to get the household names. So Nuffield Health have just achieved accreditation and are talking about different sites across the country going for accreditation as well. BBC head office in Birmingham has recently got accreditation as well. Environment Agency, Fred Olsen Cruise Lines, some sort of real sort of household names.
Some good names. Yeah.
And it is becoming important for them. It's obviously coming on with the green and the environmental agenda, and COP26 coming up in a few weeks' time. But health and well-being being a major part of it as well, and people getting some activity as part of their day through sustainable travel as well.
Yeah. So we mentioned that you went down the bespoke website route. Talk a little bit about that and how that moved you on as an organisation and so on. The challenges you face, because all technologies, ours included, it's a big cultural change. It's the implementation of something that's not necessarily that simple and straightforward. So you started that journey in 2012 to go digital. Mm-hmm. How was that for you?
Yeah, so it was a huge change for us going from paper to online, but it made the scheme so much more accessible. So we moved from Paperbased to a sort of a coded website. So I have no idea how to read or understand or write the code in the back end of the system, but it moved it online, which a big part of that was then us being able to work with local authorities who were then working with their schools, because it was all about the schools at that time. But without the need to travel, and we could all log into the same screens and view the same things at the same time. So we saw real growth in the scheme around that time, and moving from that 22 or so local authorities around 2008 to 2012, to then a big sort of jump from 2014 onwards to the sort of 60 or so. But then we almost became a victim of our own success with that, because it was great with 22 local authorities. Everyone could use it. Schools were happy, local authorities were happy. And most of the year we were generally okay as well. But our big window, our busiest window is the July, sort of end of the school year time, June, July, which we've seen with Excelpoint this year as well. But around that time we were hitting real bottlenecks. And we were finding that when more than 5 or 6 people logged into the system at once, then the system was running really slowly and grinding to a halt then. So that was one of the real reasons that we had to look at new options. and started the discussions with you guys then in 2018.
Yeah. So you moved to us in 2018. We've been through a number of iterations. In fact, those iterations from a Modeshift point of view are quite planned and structured. But in reality, I think a bit like us as a product, your travel initiatives, plan, online platform, etc., will never end. This will be an ongoing, continual development as you influence, your end users. So I'm interested then in, you moved from coded back-end website, and I know that to get developers to make changes can often be slow and difficult, take plenty of time and testing. There's issues around security and performance and other aspects that are infrastructure based. I think the move to ourselves wasn't solely the no-code platform aspect. Some of that was more around the speed, the flexibility, the fact that you guys can do some of this for yourselves. So that ability to proof of concept, dynamically try things, then involve us and so forth. How's that journey been for you in the last 4 years, say?
Yeah, I think that one of the more challenging aspects of the coded website previously was that the team, the sort of internal Modeshift team, couldn't make any changes to the system. Even like a spelling mistake or something that was spotted, it all had to be sort of go through to the developer to make changes. Whereas now with the new software, with Excelpoint, we can make our own changes from as basic as spelling mistakes, and I don't get into that side of it at all, even the spelling mistakes, because they don't let me near it in case I break it. Apparently I broke Microsoft OneDrive once, and they were on the phone to California fixing it. So we leave that to my colleague James, who's behind the system, but he's worked really closely with you guys and received a lot of support, I'd say, a lot of hand-holding through various elements of making tweaks to the system. And he can do a lot of the stuff himself now with your support, and he'll sort of check it out with them.
Yeah.
But he's just created, even yesterday, he's created a new. So with our schools or with our sites, they go for accreditation. That accreditation expires. So he's built a new function in the system that tells the local authority, it will send them an email with a full list of all of their expiring accreditations for the next term. And he's super happy that he's been able to get into the system in that depth. Yeah, and he's checking it out with your colleagues now, and then they're going to turn it into an automated process that just happens now. But he's built the initial report in the first instance that's now going to be built in as a long-term feature that will happen periodically.
Yeah. And I maybe should know this, but I think I'm right in saying James is also not from a technical background.
I think he's from an IT background, and he's got some sort of basic knowledge of coding and stuff, but he's not a developer. He's not a web developer.
No. So for people that can drive Microsoft Excel or Access or products that require logical thinking, James is in there with that. He's a subject matter expert. Yeah. He's got a logical approach to problem solving. It's a lot of what we do in our industry. It's all about problem solving. So it's good to hear that, as a team, effectively you've got an extended team. You're doing a lot of it yourself. You're reverting back to us sometimes. It's all good. That's how the pattern works and rolls out quite nicely.
Yeah. We're actually thinking of kind of extending how that support network works as well, because we've got a ticket system built into Stars where we can raise a ticket and we try and fix it, or it goes up to you guys. We're thinking about putting that through all levels of the system. So for our site users, they can raise a support ticket that will go to their local authority. And if it's nice and simple and easy to fix, the local authority can fix it, or they can escalate to us. We can fix or escalate to Excelpoint. So trying to build that support throughout the system as well, which is going to be super helpful. So all the users get that support throughout the system. Yeah,
should be easy to do. My advice will be try to keep that as simple as possible as a process. and then the engagement right through, because as we've pointed out, you've got multiple different levels of customer ability, but also the different stakeholders have different interests. So if it becomes overburdensome, it won't deliver any value, and they'll just always pass it on.
Yeah, just pass it. Yeah.
So I understand that Modeshift are having a great year this year, 20th year, and a great year as well. What does that look like in terms of a great year for Modeshift?
So we base we actually work on financial years, but being an accreditation scheme that's grown out of working with schools, we run our accreditation year based on the school year. So 1st of September 2020 to 31st of August 21. We've seen over 830 accreditation applications from sites across the country, which is our highest ever year by a long, long way. The previous highest was 2018-19, so pre-pandemic, when we had about 530 applications. So the increase of 300 applications on our best ever year, still with the after effects of pandemic and
where schools, less people are travelling.
Yeah, and schools being closed for the spring term from January to March. We've still seen the biggest ever year in terms of number of applications, and also number of licence holders. So I'd say 2/3 of local authorities now on the education system. We've got 36 that are using the business system and growing. So yeah, we're just seeing more numbers, more sites than ever before using the scheme.
That's great stuff. That's good, and excellent numbers as well. I mean, that sort of growth, as you say, set against the pandemic is, we need to get you come and work for Excelpoint, I think. Anything you'd like to ask me? I know that we're getting together in October and we're going to share some of our new technological advancements, new capabilities and so forth, but is there anything you'd like to ask me? This isn't a one-way street.
I guess, I mean, it's what's coming next from Excelpoint, because I think we've heard back from some of your colleagues that we're using pretty much every feature within the system now, because of how complex STARS is and the accreditations and working out different levels of modal shift and how people's travel's changing, and we've introduced new mapping functions and postcode plotting. Emails going out, automated emails, so what else can we get added in there as well?
Oh well, you'll find out in October. I'm not going to steal that thunder right now, but yeah, you'll find out in October. And I think you won't be using everything, but you've certainly got a broad footprint, and some of our customers use a very narrow set of our capabilities. They might think of us, and I've heard it many times, that Excelpoint's a fantastic CRM system. It's the best CRM system we've come across. And I chuckle and quietly think, that's interesting, because we're not a CRM system. So they're obviously using a very narrow set of our capabilities, but that's fine. That's what's delivering business benefit. So Nick, it's been a pleasure having you. And I think we've hopefully this podcast says to the world, think about how you travel. Have an active travel plan. More large corporates out there, and if we can encourage some of our customers to engage with Modeshift, because we should, that will make a big difference as well. So yeah, this message is a great message to get out there.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much.